A2Pcast for the week of November 13th in the year of our Lord Sheagorath 2013.
Not so much.
Yeah, right? This is the I Can't Wait Until It Overheats edition. I am Mike Rifenbury. With me is Josh Hartman and Mike Schupsky. This week we're talking about early adopters, specifically of consoles, the new consoles that are coming out very, very soon. But, general early adopters of technology, people who have to have the newest thing when it comes out, the sort of people that line up for iPhone launches. Then we're talking about our favorite memories and experiences from this past console generation. We look forward a lot in the A2Pcast, so I wanted a chance to kind of look backward and talk about some of that stuff. So, topic number one, early adoption. There are some issues with this, most notably, like the things, the thing we mentioned in the title is that you have physical problems with hardware when you get on board really early with it. So does someone want to sort of recap?
I would like to officially go on the record and say that I believe I'm on my fourth Xbox 360.
I am as well. Mike Schupsky is proudly
one and only. I got my one and only Xbox Elite. But
He did wait until the Elite.
But I am convinced. Yeah, it is. I am convinced it is the fact that I waited for the Elite. I didn't get an Xbox until when did the Elite come out? Like a year or two after.
I would think at least two.
Yeah.
So
are you even a gamer, bro? You even a gamer?
I've questioned myself many a time.
Yeah, it keeps you up at night.
This
is relevant to the podcast we had last week.
I suppose. What am I?
We don't even know.
What would you call me? I guess you couldn't call me anything because we've dismissed the gamer term.
They'd call you a little bitch.
I will just be quiet now. I am defeated.
So, I mean, we had the Red Ring experience with the original Model 360. Apple's map app fiasco, as Mike Schupsky has so eloquently stated, correctly as well, that's still broken. You have all of these potential issues that seem to crop up on hardware when it's first launched, yet people still line up for it. Why is that?
Yeah, I think there is an intrinsic value for people of come over to my house and look at my new iPhone, or come over to my house and look at my new Xbox One. There is a drive for people to have be the first person to invite their friends over, and not just invite the friends over, just say I got the new iPhone, I got the new Samsung Galaxy S whatever.
Is it almost are these people hipsters? This just occurred to me. Are these people fucking hipsters? I had the Xbox before anyone else.
Technology,
and now everyone else has it, and
techno
it's
hipster.
not cool. Now everyone else has it, and
I think we've just coined a term. Is it techno hipster?
The techno hipster.
These people are
seems unlikely that we've actually coined this term.
It also fits the form,
but it works.
Because hipsters love to say they don't spend a lot of money, and yet they spend a whole bunch of fucking money to look like they have the latest, well, not latest and greatest, but the only thing. And these people spend $500 to buy something that's broken and say, I had it first.
Well, but see, this is the thing. It's not a guarantee that it's broken. It's just much more likely that something you buy
it's not really
hasn't been put through the ringer well enough to...
Yeah. Totally, and that changes company to company to see which ones typically have better launches than others. Microsoft's track record isn't wonderful, and I haven't seen a single article talking about the potential problems, the potential hardware problems. I guess maybe it's hard to know if Microsoft themselves aren't going to fess up about things they're worried about. But no one's thinking about it because there's a delusion.
Oh, could be. Very much so, yeah.
It's so new, you just get
oh, but it's new. It has
brainwashed.
To
it's going to be great. It's
going to do everything they say.
We're going to buy a new table for it. We're going to put it here on this table. This is going to be the Xbox One table. This is going to be the best day ever.
And then it overheats.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I think, a serious concern. I think it's important, as I was saying there, it's important to look at how they've built the system itself and look at all the goddamn vents on that thing.
They're certainly worried about something.
I'm pretty sure that's indicative of a very large overheating issue I mean, they've had problems with it in the past. I see no reason why they won't have problems with it in the future. And no matter how many vents you put on it, if the hardware just isn't good enough, if it's producing too much heat and can't disperse it well enough, I mean, shit, maybe they're just doing it for overkill. So they say, all right, we know we fucked up with the original Xbox, didn't put enough vents on it. This time we'll swing the pendulum the other direction.
It's made of vents.
It's made of vents.
Something tells me like that was,
Microsoft isn't smart enough to do that.
Something tells me that was the memo to the hardware department. Like, this thing overheats. Can you imagine the shitstorm we're gonna catch? Don't let it overheat.
Well, there's a lot of foresight.
They just rimmed it. They just rimmed it with vents to like prevent that.
This assumes that Microsoft has that kind of like intelligent corporate structure.
In terms of
they don't.
In terms of let's care what people think about us.
Well, let's care, or let's even consider for a moment that this thing could have problems. I mean, they just seem to be oblivious to that.
I just personally think, even from Microsoft's lack of PR perspective, I just think they're thinking we can't have another Red Ring. We can't have another shitty launch.
But can they? I think they can.
I guess that's a point. Because
I think that's the sad truth of it. They've
survived. They've survived DRM. They've survived Red Ring.
They will continue to. If the Xbox One launch is fucked up, they will survive.
They are just this big herd of elephants that just rumbles towards you and it just fucks everything up. But they have so much goddamn money. They just keep.
Right. They have so much money and they have such a large market share.
They just keep going and they don't.
That at least for the time being, if they already have a solid foot in a market, they're gonna keep controlling the market. And it's not to say that they own the console market. Obviously, Sony is their chief contender. Mm-hmm. And I think it's interesting also to note that you had, and this ties in some with our next topic, but the old console lifespans were sort of different. Let's see. So the PlayStation 2 came out in 2000, and then the PS3 came out in 2006, where you had the original Xbox came out in 2001, a year after that, and the 360 came out at the end of 2005. So there's a year difference in launch between all of those, but now that we're into the next console cycle, or very soon will be, I mean, we have launches that are a week apart. I think that really says something about, they're going after each other.
Being the first one out of the gate does seem to have a measurable effect on the success of the console.
That's true. I mean, PS3's troubled launch. I mean, we talk about 360's troubled launch. PS3 had a very troubled launch. Not just because of the price.
I mean, the price was a major.
The price was a major thing, but the fact that it came out after the 360, the fact that there was already a next gen console, and then here comes this other one that's like, was it $600?
$600.
$600, and yet the 360 was, God, I can't remember how much it was at that time, but it was definitely cheaper.
It was $400.
I think it was $400, yeah.
But it's also the fact that it came out sooner that helped its cause.
I mean, it doesn't help that you already bought this one.
Which is, I think, the sort of thing Sony is running on this time. Granted, it comes out a week earlier, but it is $100 cheaper. Yeah. And so people say, well, that's $100, and it comes out the week before, and it has basically the same games at the moment.
Yeah, and that's
why not?
That's really important. It ties into what we were talking about last week with the people who play Call of Duty who aren't gamers, so to speak. People that don't really care. Call of Duty comes out on both systems. If Call of Duty is the only game they care about,
what's the cheapest way to get Call of Duty?
The cheapest way to get Call of Duty on the next gen. There's no brand loyalty among consoles for the casual person.
I'm not so sure if I agree with that because, I mean, I've long had this thing of, do I go from Xbox One to PS4? But it's very much a social movement now. You have a lot of friends on Xbox Live.
Where your friends lie.
And that, but I mean, that's getting a little bit off topic, but just the idea of who do you, which console do you switch to based on where your friends...
What are your friends going to do? And I think having them a week apart, it doesn't really give either of them a big advantage on that. But that could be a big reason why they're only a week apart, because can you imagine what would happen if PlayStation was a year behind again? Now the market really has grown a lot. When 2005, casual gaming and mobile gaming I don't think it was anywhere near as large.
Mobile gaming
didn't.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, didn't exist.
Right, it did not exist. It's not that it's directly relevant, but just this idea of a casual.
Well, but I think that has expanded the casual gaming
market.
The kind of idea that says I can sit down for 5 or 10 minutes and play a short game of something. You have those experiences on console now.
Yeah, you definitely you'd have the experience of I can just come home from work and sit down on the couch for an hour and play a game. I would call that almost a casual experience.
Yeah, and especially if we're talking about the upper middle class suburban America, the kind of person who isn't entrenched enough to really have brand loyalty, also not entrenched enough to know how much they should wait to get a new console. If one of them came out a year before the other one, of course, there's Call of Duty. That's what I'm going to get this Christmas. So the next year it doesn't matter because I already have the console. Me and all my bros already have it.
Yeah.
So that's why they're a week apart, because I think it would be deadly for any of the one that came far after.
But also the week difference, in terms of PS4 launch versus the Xbox One launch, plays into that idea of I got to get it first week or first day.
Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing. People are going to line up in front of stores for this console at midnight. On Thursday. The sort of person who is likely to do that, well, of course, they're not going to wait another week. They're getting the first thing, and the first thing happens to be the cheapest thing too, and that's the PlayStation. Mm-hmm. I think that's really important, and I think that's why PlayStation has more pre-orders than the Xbox One. Now, Xbox hasn't come out and said exactly how many pre-orders they have. As far as I am aware, they have more pre-orders than the 360, of course, because I think the gaming market has expanded considerably since the launch of the last generation of consoles.
But just getting back to the idea of why would people want to buy a console the first day?
Getting back to that.
I mean, not even the idea of okay, we understand the idea of an intrinsic value of I have it first. It's the new thing. I need it.
So we get that. But what is the pragmatic value of having a console that there are? Not a lot of. In my opinion, really no.
There's no reason. There's no reason. You turn it on and you're like, what do I play? You watch Netflix. There you go. That's it.
That was a problem. That was a problem with the last generation of launches too, and this one I think is an even worse problem.
I think it is worse. I think it's worse because I think the immediate graphical increase in quality isn't there.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of,
and again, this goes back to our parallel development topic in that it won't be there because of all of these other factors.
Exactly, I think there's been some effort to make some hype between the difference between Battlefield 4, 360, and Xbox. Of course, there's going to be differences, but I don't think it's as severe. I say from the Xbox to the Xbox 360.
Right.
I think people are going to be more willing to play Battlefield 4 on 360 and just wait. Just wait for a year to get the Xbox One, as opposed to I got to get the Xbox One because I have to play Battlefield 4 on the maximum settings.
If Call of Duty and Battlefield were only coming out for next gen, that would incentivize people to get the console so much more. I mean, not that again, we have all these other factors that are pushing people to get the console. But I think even the casual gamer would then say, oh man, that experience that I like to have for an hour every night, that's only available to me if I buy this $500, this $400 console. But that isn't the case. They can, they aren't, as you said, they aren't, quote, gamers, as, Mark Rubin said as well. It's, they aren't worried about
they just want to get
is this the most beautiful thing? How well does that building, fall apart? How great does the glass shatter when I shoot it? What are the particle effects and the sun flares look like? They don't care about that. They go, is that shit hot? Yeah, man, that shit's hot. I gotta get that.
Are my friends playing?
Okay, that's it. That's all they're concerned.
No, well, I might say that they do care about the fact that it's more beautiful, but they they don't really know that it's more beautiful.
Or they don't care
I
enough?
think they care a lot, but I don't think they understand why. They don't understand what it means to care a lot.
What do you mean?
I mean, it's the same thing as showing off that you just bought the newest thing. I can just see this conversation happening so clearly in my mind. Yeah, bruh. Look at that. Look at that. Shit's tight, yo. Look at the way that building falls. Oh, man. This is so cool. There's not much understanding of what actually goes in it. Not much understanding of real subtlety between what makes a good visual experience.
Oh, well, sure.
But they do. I think that is a huge thing that you want to be able to say, yeah, come over play it on the Xbox One. This thing looks great. It's so beautiful, man. Like, that cocktail conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, and I'm not saying that they're incapable of distinction between the two. I mean, obviously, there's that, but...
Oh, I might say that some people are incapable of distinguishing between the two,
perhaps.
but they don't care. They don't actually know, they just would like to say that it's much better.
But I think the most important part of that is that they care, but they don't care enough to spend $500 to fix it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a $500 difference. Do I spend $500 and get that
To have a marginally better looking game.
super high def, whatever?
But you can still have your casual Call of Duty experience
Yeah.
on a current gen, and they will continue to do that until they stop making Call of Duty for the current generation of consoles.
Yeah. And this will be a question like when. Well, I mean, Microsoft has stated 2 years that they're going to.
Yeah, I think Sony has more or less said the same thing,
Same
and
thing.
I think that's fair because honestly, I think there's still more to be gotten out of the current generation.
So it's even more perplexing that we've had such a huge number of pre-orders, like for both consoles. Like
there really isn't much reason. I think we've kind of come to that consensus through this conversation that there really isn't much reason to get it at launch day.
Especially since Watch Dogs was delayed.
There's nothing exclusive about it. The only reason to really go out and buy this holiday season is so you can say yeah, bro, look at the way that building falls, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this is great.
But yeah, like more just the fact of like physically, look at it. There it is on my shelf.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same conversation. It's just bring your friends over.
Let's take marketing. Let's imagine that reality isn't reality for a moment. Let's take like marketing and sales out of this entirely and just say, wouldn't it be so much better if next gen consoles came out, say, July of 2014? So you've got a much larger selection of games, and they've coordinated with these third-party developers instead of relying solely on first-party development. So they've coordinated with all of these third-party developers who have, of course, been developing next-gen games for a few years now, and they've said, "Oh yeah, sure, we can hit a Q3 or Q4 2014 deadline. That's no problem." You have all of that. You have all of the functionality that they're currently promising but not delivering on. You will have that then day one, July of 2014. You'll have that day one. So with a PS4, you'll have PS1, 2, and 3 games streaming to the system on day one. You'll have the ability to use external hard drives day one. You'll have, I'm trying to think of, there's a
lot of vague stuff that Microsoft
there's
has
a lot
promised.
And that's of course another issue.
That might take years and years because I think they still want to bring that always online into it. They just can't. That is
going to be a thing. It takes.
Oh, sure, it's going to happen.
They need to build up the software and hardware capability.
But I mean, just imagine a world in which that were the case, and you have such a better experience at launch because you have, like, IGN had I think a video or something or an article, whatever, that said their experience in a live demo with the Kinect 2.0. in like an ideal setup in a sort of fake living room environment, and the Kinect couldn't really understand their voice commands that well, and this was like a Microsoft, like tightly controlled thing, and they still had to speak, the commands a few times over before the Kinect realized what it wanted. That seems like a big issue to be having less than a month out from a console launch, in which you've said that, well, Kinect 2.0 is an integral part of our experience. You have to be able to talk to it and do all of these things. Well, that'd be great if it worked perfectly. But does anyone think that's actually going to be the case? No, why don't you give it 6 months and make it perfect so that when you launch the product, there are no issues. There are no large things. There's no red ring of death. There's no PlayStation yellow light. You don't have to worry about that stuff. And you have the game content that people want to play on top of that.
I hate to do it, though, because you said don't bring in profits, but...
But I mean, that's the entire reason why they aren't going
But
to.
they just think, like...
Well, it's a holiday thing.
Dummies are going to buy it and say...
Right, and they are.
Look at my thing. But yeah, but I mean...
It circles back around to the beginning of our conversation here and saying that, well, it's just about people who have to have the newest thing first so they can brag to their
But from a practical perspective, you're absolutely right. Like it just seems obvious that you would want to release a product that performs as advertised.
Wow!
What a notion.
I mean, what a concept, right? But it's very much every console development, just any kind of product that is released that's the new thing. I wouldn't say like always has problems, but you have to assume that it's going to have some bumps in the road, and you're like, why couldn't they like release it 3 months later and like just fix that stuff? But it's that machine that you have to release it every year. You have to
do it at holiday.
Do it at holiday. Get people to buy it. And who cares if it's crap? Who cares if it's broken? Who cares if it's going to break?
At least it's out, and at least it's making us money.
Yes, at least it's out. It's making us money. We can say we're sorry, and we can fix it, but just push it out there.
So on to topic number 2 now. We're going to talk about sort of our experiences with the soon-to-be previous console generation, the Xbox 360, the PS3. Not so much with the Wii, because who cares about the Wii? Mostly about the Xbox, actually, but let's just jump in and Schupsky or Josh, do you have any sort of really vivid memories that you can sort of pull out of things that you had happen to you? Because of course, this console generation was also brought upon us in, I think, a formative time in our lives. I mean, we were all adolescents,
all in college. Like all in, like we
throughout. I mean,
high school
from the end of
really. I mean, that was the 360 was high school and college.
Yeah, high school and college.
Well,
are there more important years in a person's life? I mean, I would hope so.
I suppose not, but I just had a little bit of experience because like I got it in college, so like that was, and honestly, like that was the time in my life that like video games like became more important than normal than I had before. Like I had just had the GameCube before, and it'd been a very casual experience.
Mm-hmm. Just which Nintendo is good at. I mean,
did you play some Animal Crossing?
Play some Animal?
Because I played hours and hours of Animal Crossing.
I say disparaging things about Nintendo, but Nintendo really does have their finger on the pulse of the casual gamer.
They opened that door for me in terms of playing games. But yeah, I had the GameCube.
As did I. We all did. I
all had the GameCube.
You can have great experiences on a GameCube.
Yeah. I wish I had one. I don't know where it went.
Yeah, we need to invest in a GameCube.
Yeah, but so I
run it off as a business expense.
So I had the GameCube. I was just a very casual gamer. I got the 360 for Christmas in my freshman year of college, I believe.
Oh wow!
And yeah, like that was the first moment like games took on like a higher importance for me, because like games always just felt like this thing of like it's just like
nothing more than a game, right?
Just nothing more than a video game. But like when I played Oblivion and when I played Halo, I think 3 was the first Halo game. 360?
Yeah.
Yes, I played Halo 3. When I played,
even though it's the worst of the series, but continue.
Continue, yeah. Don't interrupt me. But when I played all these games, it was like, wow, video games can be much more than just a little thing that I do, like just sitting down.
I could spend 10 hours a day doing this.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Like it's actually
and then you got Oblivion, and then you did spend 10 hours a day playing Oblivion. I have so many wonderful memories, Josh, of just spending all day long playing Oblivion, just nothing but Oblivion. And just how immersive that was, and how important I think Oblivion was to how I understand what a game can be.
Yeah. Oh, actually, my experience with Oblivion was coupled with BioShock because I got the BioShock and Oblivion dual pack.
The dual pack. See, I didn't play Bioshock
Best.
for several years until several years after its release.
I was in the same boat. Like
that's true. I suppose that makes sense.
Dual pack
by the time they came out,
the dual pack came out.
Because you were really behind on Oblivion.
I was so behind on everything because like I didn't get the 360 until like 2 years after it came out, so I had no idea. But I got the dual pack of Oblivion and BioShock, and I don't think I've spent more time on a single purchase than I did on Oblivion and BioShock. It was amazing.
That is like a perfect combination.
It really is.
Those are like two of the possibly the two best early 360 games.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the hundreds of hours you can spend playing either of them is remarkable.
Oblivion especially, but oh my god. Like how when's the last time you've been so happy to spend 10 hours doing something than playing Oblivion for like 10 fucking straight hours? Then fucking playing Oblivion.
Then happiness.
It's
you really do. I think those experiences were available before this console generation, but they were harder to do and they weren't as immersive because of things like the advancement of AI. You can have more happening at once. You can, simple things even like draw distance. Morrowind has the distance fog, and it's like you can't actually see anything in the distance. But Oblivion, there are just vistas. Yeah. Oblivion is still beautiful.
Yeah,
it's like even in all of its like
clunkiness
and oldness, and it's 7 years old now, but it's still beautiful in its own way. You can go up to Dive Rock and look at the vista and see the Imperial City, and just wonderful.
Nothing beats that first time when you just get out of that dungeon.
You step out of the dungeon, and you just go,
big,
wow.
bright light, bright sunny sky, and everything's around you, and you can go.
And it just says, just do it.
Do it.
You want to walk to the other side of the world? Go for it.
Here it is. Go for it. And
I think that was the that being my introduction to this console generation, I think really colored my expectations for the rest of it. In just saying that like there is no limit to what you can do in a video game. Yeah. And I think that was so important.
You were conditioned in a way to expect limitations in a video game. I'm just thinking of my previous experiences of playing video games. I always played single player experiences. I always played mostly first person shooters. So you just always have this just kind of.
Well, but even if it's not on rails, it feels like it's on rails. Like you can't you can't dictate what happens in the story. You can't say like, oh, I wonder what happens. Can I take my follower up to the mountains and
why is this
sacrifice them in an evil way to Sithis and then steal all of their stuff and then go running around in nothing but a loincloth, jumping around with my acrobatic skill at 100? I mean, like you can just do things, and I think
this generation brought that possibility to
right. With the advancement in hardware came the equal advancement in the ability of software to be really, really good. And I think it's important also that the current generation of consoles sort of gave us the beginning of so many really good franchises. So you had, and it's not to say that Elder Scrolls started on this generation. It didn't, of course. We're not so blind as to say that, but
it is Elder Scrolls 4. So I mean, we're not.
Yes, we're just but I think for a lot of people that's where it began. I think. Yeah. I mean, how many Skyrim players can say, "Oh yeah, I was into it when Morrowind came out"?
Yeah, not that many.
Very few.
And even Morrowind is the third.
Does anyone recall Daggerfall? Does anyone?
Exactly. It's like if
I was shitting myself with Daggerfall.
But
I think very few people can sort of recall that kind of thing.
And I'm not ashamed to say my first experience with Elder Scrolls was Oblivion.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, mine was Morrowind. You know, it's important, but
I mean,
5 of 10 would recommend occasionally.
but I think the more important thing is there to say that it brought an experience that I think at the time most people would have thought, oh, this can only be
on
a PC because of the level of detail and the sort of micromanaging everything and all the inventory stuff and all of that.
Yeah, the question of whether you could actually do a game like that with all of these menus, with all of these inventory things, with just thumbsticks.
Yeah, and you know, everyone really bitches about the Oblivion menu. I don't hate the Oblivion menus.
I thought they did
I think the inventory system was fine.
Job with like what input you could do with like thumbsticks and A button and all that.
I mean, I think I have no problems with it.
It never felt clunky. It never felt clunky in the same way that like the Mass Effect inventory felt.
Oh, yes.
Maybe we'll get to that. Maybe we won't. But besides the point, like.
Well, but I think we can. That's another good segue. Is that, you know? So you have the beginning of all of these franchises. Mass Effect was 2007.
This generation maybe was defined by Mass Effect because it began and ended with Mass Effect.
I mean, Mass Effect really did have its life over this console generation, and I mean that trilogy really was, and especially when you look at, and of course, you know, I will without shame say that Mass Effect 1 is my favorite, and it still looks beautiful. Somehow it's still gorgeous.
Yeah.
But from, you know, there are obvious improvements that have occurred from 1 to 3, and you can
track the progress of the console generation through that series.
Right, especially because you're looking at the same characters, you're looking at the same sort of environment.
Everything's the same, but like slightly different, and like that's
and slightly better. You have higher polygon counts, you have better textures.
Yeah.
Things like that, and I think that gives us a really good sort of metric by which to measure the improvements in the way things are developed for the console. Also,
I think, oddly enough, I know we've only had 2 games out for this series, but the GTA series with 4 and then 5, not counting the individual like Ballad of Gay Tony and
I mean they were on 4 though.
But just like
although they did improve.
They did improve, yes, but like
the character models in particular, the Gay Tony,
the improvement from 4 to 5 is drastic, and like just how different.
Well, but I think again, it's really important to note that first of all, Grand Theft Auto does have, you know, like the Elder Scrolls, a very long development cycle. You know, 4 or 5 year development cycles, and so I mean, there was obviously development happening on Grand Theft Auto 4 before the 360 was officially released. Mm-hmm. But then, you know, Rockstar has had this amount of time to sort of get used to how to work on a 360, how to get the most out of the system. And then, you know, the very end, literally the end of the console cycle, you know, a month ago, you have Grand Theft Auto come out.
And it's also just a slight, like, just, it's impressive that BioWare released the Mass Effect games within 2-3 years within each other. I think Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2. Mass Effect 2 came out in 2010.
And then 2012 for Mass Effect 3.
Yeah, and then I think 1 came out in 2007. So like it went 3 years
and then 2 years.
2 years. So
but I think graphically 2 and 3, and in more ways than just that, 2 and 3 are more alike than 1.
But I mean, I also think it goes back to that thing we've talked about before, and like the improvement of graphics like has this sort of like flattening out curve. Like it's a stark comparison between 1 and 2, and then between 2 and 3
it is smaller.
Not quite as much. Still an improvement, but not quite as much.
Here's something that just occurred to me. We're talking about the good games. We should talk about the terrible games of the 360, and not just, you know, your generic, wow, that game's a piece of shit. That's too easy. What about the demise of Gears of War? Because once upon a time, Gears of War was
This is a sad story for me.
And not that many people really care anymore.
Judgment was, I wouldn't say a disaster, but nobody really cared.
Nobody really cared. Compared to... I think not that I'm one to defend Gears of War, because I played the beta for 3. My last experience purchasing a Gears of War game was 2. I got kind of sick of 2, and then I played the beta for 3, and by the time that had happened, I simply couldn't stand it anymore, and I never purchased 3. I think Judgment was done by a different studio.
Okay.
Or was it?
Oh, was it? Okay. Well, that explains a lot.
Well, I'm not even talking about the quality.
But
of
even
the game,
3.
But I just mean public perception of it. Like,
Oh, sure.
it used to be.
It's
It was such a defining early 360 game. It was the most beautiful game 360 had yet made.
By far, it was an immensely beautiful game. That was another game that I played. And I'm like, wow, this is the capability of a video.
It makes me question because here's the thing that's sometimes in the back of my mind. Thinking of the early years of the 360, I have more fun on the 360 now than I did in the first 3 or 4 years of its life. The second half of its life has been so much better than the first half of its life. Games, I think you could say that that's just maybe it's just because they know how to do the system better, but I think that more applies to graphics. There just are better games on the 360 now than there were in the first half. We bought and played these games, but they really weren't. They weren't really as good. And Gears of War, I wonder if Gears of War rose to prominence just because of the position it was in.
It was the best thing we had.
It was the best thing we had. It looked the best compared to everything else.
Were there any other good third-person shooters?
No.
Although it also gives you kind of pioneered.
That was one of the first
really.
That was one of the
Mass Effect owes a lot to Gears of War, so we have to give it credit.
Well, I think it's also important. I think to keep in mind that Epic made Gears of War. Epic also makes the Unreal Engine upon which Gears of War is built.
Upon which Mass Effect is built.
Upon which Mass Effect is also built.
Millions of games.
Which it's true.
Oh no, hyperbole approaches.
And not so much.
Millions.
Maybe not millions. Thousands.
Easily. For sure, yeah.
But it is true that when Gears of War came out, it was just like this shining beacon of
because I think also Gears of War, I wish I had hard evidence on this. I think Gears of War was one of the first games to use Unreal Engine 3.
Yeah.
Which was a very large factor in why it looked so goddamn good, because it was all brand new stuff.
Did Doom 3 use
No, Doom was all id Tech.
Doom was all in. Okay.
Yeah, Doom has always been.
They have similar. They have similar like ray trace shadows. It gives them a similar appearance.
Okay.
But they are distinct.
Yeah.
Are there any other games that use id Tech?
I don't believe so. I don't.
Rage?
Rage. Rage is also made by the
developed
studio.
by id.
Okay.
Yes.
Did id use its own engine for Rage? Just curious.
Yes, I do believe John Carmack used.
Let's
his own
ask
engine.
Wikimedia.
Yeah. Let's call up John Carmack and ask him.
Yes.
Yes. So, I don't believe id Tech is licensed out.
I don't think so either. I mean, it's in the same way.
I don't know. I actually don't know. I might be wrong.
In the same way that Naughty Dog's engine, I forget what Naughty Dog's engine is called, but they have their own proprietary engine for the Uncharted series and Last of Us.
Right.
Pretty sure. But it probably does the same thing.
We should also mention Assassin's Creed.
Assassin's Creed did begin at the beginning of the cycle.
And this is another sad.
A sad decline
statement for me because it's like it started off so.
One was so interesting.
One was
two
good.
was
One
like
was
a
good
like a holy grail.
I think Assassin's Creed. I think you're done. I think Assassin's Creed was most interesting, and I think we haven't ever discussed this, and I think it's a shame. The control scheme of Assassin's Creed is unlike any other game I've ever played. And as far as I'm aware, no one else has really adopted it. And it's using the triggers for different actions, whether you're, doing aggressive actions or passive actions. And it's such a different way of thinking about how to control a character, and it works so well. I think it's really important to.
And it's amazing that
understand that
they started with that control scheme in 1. And it's remained largely unchanged throughout the whole
for all
series.
of the crazy changes Assassin's Creed has gone through. The control scheme is not.
Although 3 did upset it a little bit. I remember.
But
3
it's amazing.
Kind of tweaked it.
But it's amazing how they just nailed it that first time with 1. They just
they found something that really worked for what they were doing.
Nailed it, and they just stuck with it throughout the there was no need for.
Were there any parkour free running games before Assassin's Creed? Or anything of real value?
I've never played a game where you could run up to a building and scale the building, climb up. I've never played a game like that before.
Again, nothing that was in the mainstream anyway.
No.
Nothing that did it that well.
I mean, it was
If at all.
it was amazing that was such that used. I mean, it still is almost in a way like that. There's just this rush of like I can run up to this building
And just go up it.
and just climb it.
Yeah.
And they use the perspective so well to give sense of height and like the first time you jump off that building, even any of the games,
first time you do
Yeah,
a leap of faith.
it's
the leap of faith is
nauseating. You go,
a rush.
Oh man.
And then when you're scaling in 2, those
Oh,
gigantic
2 is the best
cathedrals, and like the camera just
Oh.
knows how to like show
Oh,
how
yeah, you can-
high up you are, and you're like going like this.
And you're just like,
It's
can
so
I keep
scary.
going? Can I? And then it's like you get to the dome. You're like, can I climb? Oh my god, I can
Oh my
climb
God,
up the
I can
dome.
climb
And
the
there's a
dome.
cross. I can climb up on the cross. And you're just bouncing on your tippy toes, like
Yeah.
on this cross, like several hundred feet in the air.
There's a haystack down there.
And I think again, it's you have to give credit to the hardware that is able to show you that sense of scale. I mean, you couldn't do that on an original Xbox or a PS2.
It'd be not as cool if you got up and you just saw
And you couldn't see anything.
and you just
because
saw a haze cloud.
the draw distance was so bad. I mean, what's the point of being able to scale buildings if you can't see the ground?
You can't see the
Yeah.
You can't have
see
a
the boundaries.
reference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Unfortunate that the
Evolved.
original creators of that game were pushed out, or was it pushed out, retired, moved around? That is the same company, isn't it? That the person who originally was like in charge made the first game, got involved with the second game, then got pushed out. Then his company was purchased and brought back in, and then quit again in the last few months. Unless it's a different series I'm thinking
of
of.
3 or of 2. Like what he was hired back in during which game?
Well, no, he wasn't hired back in. He formed his own company, which was then purchased by Ubisoft again,
Oh, I see. Okay.
and then left Ubisoft for a second time.
Okay.
But that definitely did happen, and it didn't happen where you think it would happen. They lost like the original creator. Someone should research. We need a team of researchers here. But then 2 is still the best of the series.
Mm-hmm.
But after 2, the only good things that ever happened have been the things left over from 2,
Naval battles.
and now the life and death of Assassin's Creed within one console cycle. So we've had things that have gone through. Any other types of series we should talk about? Things that started, things that ended, things
I
that
think
ended and began.
I think
things that
we could talk about Halo. I think I think Halo is a good one to highlight the expansion of the internet, social media, social interactivity.
Halo 2 was the reason for Xbox Live, and I think everyone waited for Halo 3 partly because of that reason. Like,
Oh, yeah.
we were playing Gears of War because we didn't have Halo.
So from Halo 2 on the original Xbox, going then to the 360, Microsoft, in one of their rare moments of clarity of thought, realized that, hey, maybe like online gaming is going to be a thing. And I mean, they really hedged their bets on it, and it paid off because shit, turns out people like to play online with their friends.
Big time.
And Xbox Live took off. A paid subscription service, which I think is something
Pretty remarkable.
that they got that to become such a huge experience. The party chat system that still isn't present on the PS3. You can't do that on a PS3.
Yeah.
Even though it still sucks sometimes.
But it's
Well,
still
it's true,
but it
still
exists.
sucks,
Not
but,
fully
but
functional.
it's there. But it's there.
It exists, right?
You can do it.
You can do it.
You
in theory.
can't do it on a PlayStation.
And I just think the 360 really sort of brought the experience of like a hardcore online PC gamer who did online gaming with his friends into someone's living room. It gave you the ability to have that experience without being a hardcore gamer.
I think, I mean, the genesis was Halo 2 in that there were still people playing Halo 2 not that many years ago. They finally shut down the online system for Xbox.
The online servers, yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Exclusively because of like Halo 2 and how massive it was. And then I think Microsoft caught on and said, okay, there's something to this. And then I think not even just Halo 3, but Call of Duty 4 was like the genesis of like people that don't necessarily call themselves gamers, but they enjoyed playing online with their friends. Call of Duty 4, like that was like that's what turned gaming into not just a niche market, but like just this huge thing. Like it's amazing.
Right. Well, it's the ability not only to interact with the game elements, but to interact with other people inside of the game,
The social
and to
element,
do it in a casual setting, and to just be able to make it an experience that is as comfortable as sitting on your couch and watching a movie.
We frequently knock Call of Duty for being the same thing over and over and over again. Just
Oh,
run,
but
you
the
shoot,
beginnings
you
of
die.
Call of Duty, when they brought it into the modern era, really was a sort of, they got where the future of gaming was going, and they jumped on board with that.
Big time. But like just like the multiplayer experience, we often knock it for being like the same thing. You run, you shoot, you die, you revive, you run, you shoot, you die, you do the same thing. That appeals to like 90% of the people out there. In terms of, like,
and it was great. Before it got
I will-
old,
and I
Call
will
of Duty was really fun.
And I will unabashedly say, like, I played Call of Duty up until Modern Warfare 2. Like, just I loved it. I loved it so much.
Call of Duty 4 was really fun.
Yeah, the leveling up system was a very important development.
Modern Warfare 2 was fun, but
think
that was the
Halo-
first time we said, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I don't think
Things are
Halo
getting stretched.
had a ranking. Did Halo 3 have a ranking system in terms of?
Yes,
Yeah.
but it was strange, and it wasn't skill based
Okay.
at all. It was all just like time based.
Yeah.
You would get a little bit more if you won, but
Yeah, I remember Call of Duty 4. That was the first game I played where like you started off as one and you worked your way up, and that like kind of started that idea of what we talked about was what is a gamer like. Gamer is someone who plays a lot and has like level 99 or whatever the fuck that is. But anyway, like that started the idea of like, oh, I should play so I can work up to level 20.
Right.
But in the same time, you're playing in like a social environment where you can like get on every night with your friends, and like it changed. It just completely changed it.
And I think that it's so intrinsically tied to our perception as sort of young people that the web is a social meeting place. It's a we have Facebook, we have Twitter, we have Tumblr, we have all of these other things where we go online, we talk to our friends, even friends that we know in real life, and people that we have never met, that we don't know what they look like at all. We meet these people for social interaction, and gaming really, got on board with that early. And I think that's been tied into so much of its success. And I think this console generation was really I think we will look back or maybe we won't even be able to. Maybe we need a bit more perspective than that. But I think in time, we'll look back on this console generation and say, like, this was a really important developmental time.
Yeah, I agree with
Not
that.
just graphically,
A lot.
not just in terms of hardware, but in terms of the entire...
I believe the phrase we're looking
zeitgeist?
for is paradigm shift.
paradigm shift.
I liken it to like baby steps because it still was like in terms of what we're trying to strive for.
Oh no, I don't think so.
No, I mean,
no,
I think
no.
it was more than
still
baby steps.
I still think we haven't realized the full potential.
No, of course
what it
not.
could be.
That's I mean,
But I still
never.
think when
But-
looking back like 50 years, we're gonna say this was the generation.
No,
that
but what
started
we're
it
saying is like, it didn't exist before this generation.
all. Oh, very much. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's
I will
where
not
this
I will not
created
disagree
the
with that.
market.
I will
Like,
not
this
disagree with that,
is
yes.
the one. Like
Right, and
the reason we have casual gamers, the reason Microsoft can even think we're going to put a video game console in as many homes in America as we can, and that's not a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
Put that in 1997. I mean,
Yeah.
oh yeah, well Jimmy got his PlayStation for Christmas this year.
Right,
That
but
is-
like,
it was
mom,
this
mom and dad
constellation that
don't want
changed
to
it.
touch it. It's just for little Jimmy. Now the system can be for everyone.
Yeah.
You can have cable. You can have Netflix. You can do all of these different things with your console, and it's not even feeding into the hype or whatever you want to call it about the Xbox One and how it does all of these things, but even just the basic like app functionality. Like we're going to get into on our next topic here. With the PlayStation 3.
Streaming Netflix was huge.
Right, streaming Netflix in the last couple of years. I mean, the PlayStation 3 is the device on which the majority of people have streamed Netflix. Over all other devices, that's computers, phones, the Xbox, everything. And I think that's really remarkable. And it really, as you said, does indicate a paradigm shift in what people consider gaming consoles to be and what they mean to people.
Just one little point I'd like to make. Also, the fact that PlayStation introduced Blu-ray. And the fact that for a long time, the PS3 was the cheapest Blu-ray player.
That is true.
That is a very good point as well.
That was
and I think
huge.
It's
the exact same thing.
Nice to see. It's nice to see that Microsoft, they said, well, I guess we have to.
Yeah.
Well, HD DVD really didn't.
They had
come through for them.
they had their try.
Also,
HD
I mean,
DVD.
it's also their own fault.
Yeah.
Who didn't bundle an HD DVD player?
But also the fact that they're going to have to pay Sony for the rights to use Blu-ray.
Oh, I bet you that cuts deep.
Well, I mean, it's actually not going to cost them as much as you think. But it
that's a
does
shame.
cut deep in terms of pride of like, okay, you guys were right.
Does Microsoft have any pride?
I think they're out of it. At
They
this
have no
point.
pride.
I think they run out a long time
They
ago.
have no pride. They just have profits.
They have no pride. They have profits. Yeah, well,
Pride and profits.
Pride and profits. The Microsoft story.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week. We have a Facebook page. That's facebook.com/alive2play. You can like us on there. We'll be posting other things, including links to some of the stuff we've talked about this week. We have a Twitter, @alive2play. You can tweet us there. For Mike Schupsky and Josh Hartman, I'm Mike Rifenbury.